pulled off the road near Big Pine Key where the traffic thins and the sky starts getting honest. I knew this place. I drove down a beat-up, rut-filled road, very familiar to me, to the old hidden dock, as I call it. There it was, same rickety planks I built back when Nixon was still sweating on TV.
Welcome back to Life's Learning Curve. Storytelling. Our own life stories, full of humor, some cringeworthy moments, and at times, a grander purpose. Did you ever wonder just how you became the person you are today? That's us. Storytelling.
Have you ever met one of those people in your lives that seems like they've lived 5 lives, dodged 4 disasters, and made peace with at least 3 of them? Well, for me, that was a guy I met about 20 years ago named Ernest Skip Wilson. I called him Skip. Skip was short for, as he told me, skipped effort entirely. Now, this is down the south, down in Florida, South Florida.
Hello.
An ex-adventurer, ex-romantic, ex-everything. He washed up in the Florida Keys sometime in the 1970s with 2 shirts, 1 towel, and absolutely no plan, unless you count charm and caffeine. Now, decades later, he's on a porch. He's sitting there with a busted chair. I had a talk with him recently. Hot cup of Cuban coffee in his hand, just like I remember him, except just a little bit older. And a box of old calendars sitting next to him that seemed to stir up the ghosts in his past. Now, this isn't your typical goodbye story. It's actually about what happens when a man finally stops running and the place, the island that let him stay. Here we go.
Life's Learning Curve, episode 94. You're somebody's barstool now. Stand by.
So like I said, it was back in the early 2000s when I met Skip Wilson. I remember we started a conversation, and as we talked, he handed me a business card that read, Skip Wilson, ex-adventurer, ex-romantic, ex-everything. And there was no phone number, just attitude that was also on that card. Really, he spent most of his life outrunning responsibilities with a tan and a grin. Now, he's kind of slowing down these days. I spoke to him recently. We video chatted while he was sitting on a porch in the Keys, sipping a strong Cubano coffee, talking to the past like it still owed him money, like he's waiting on a check from some guy who skipped town in 1987. But on this particular morning, my friend Skip had found an old box full of paper calendars. Do you remember paper calendars? They were pre-smartphone life organizers, basically stapled gilt with holidays and birthdays printed on them.
Whoa. Oh, look who decided to show up again. 1979. Yeah, I remember you. That was the year I wound up meeting Chug, my good buddy Chug. He could juggle limes and insults at the same time. Left town for a female drummer with one eyebrow and a van that never started.
Chug.
Good riddance, Chug. But I gotta tell you, that's Chug. Chug is a guy who got me. Really got me in that weird way only the truly unqualified can. Or, unlike most of my buddies and friends back then, maybe he just had a high tolerance for my complaining. Oh, I was good at that back then, whining. I made it an art. So maybe I did deserve to get ditched at that roadside fruit stand outside of Isla Mirada by Chug. That guy Chug, that mango. That guy, yeah, not ripe. Oh, just like me back then. Let me tell you, some folks raise a glass to the good old days. Me, I tuck 'em in a box labeled Lessons That Left a Mark. But you know what? The memories still shine and the porch view still mighty fine around here. Birds and the sunrises and the sunsets and the skies. And the coffee's hot enough to, well, burn the truth out of your throat.
Today on this episode, Skip's going to tell us about his story, not with tears and sadness, but with the kind of shrug only a man who's seen some things. I've seen some things. Something he can pull off.
The people call me Skip, still, short for Skipulus. Not that I ever agreed with Skipulus, but more like scipulously broke. I've been so broke, I once paid rent with a cooler of lobster tails. Caught 'em myself, and yeah, technically it was out of season, so... I've been so broke, I once traded a Jimmy Buffett cassette for gas money. Guy behind the counter said he already had that one, and I said, "Alright, now you got a hurricane backup." He laughed, and I got $4 and a Slim Jim. Fair trade. Oh, and another time, I think I told you this one, I taught a 3-day introduction to sailing class, just so I could sleep on that boat. Didn't own the boat. Still don't. But as I said, I hit the Keys in around 74. Pre-Jimmy. That's pre-Buffett, by the way. Before every tiki bar had a blender and a parrot. Back then it was just, shrimp boats, smugglers, workers, rumors, and bars. Where the jukebox skipped if you leaned too hard on the pool table. I had a sunburn constantly, 2 shirts, and the confidence of a man with no plan. My specialty. One of those shirts was technically a towel, incidentally. Didn't matter though, I figured charm would carry me. A spoiler alert, it didn't carry me. That's what it was back then. You didn't show up in the Keys to get rich. You showed up to get lost. And me? I was an overachiever in that department. Tanned, broke, and somehow convinced the universe owed me a second chance. Still waiting on that one, by the way. Back then, I ran fishing charters, dated questionable women, sketchy friends, I guess. I lived on rum and rumors. Every morning I woke up still alive. Yep, back then, that was a win.
Skip's greatest story wasn't some sea rescue or bar tab dodge in Bimini, although he's done both of those things. It was Clarabelle, artist from New Jersey. She wore paint like perfume, and she smiled like she knew something you didn't.
Clarabelle. Oh, an artist from Jersey, yeah. She had paint under her nails and zero tolerance for my usual nonsense. I cleaned it up for you. She looked at me like she'd already dated 5 guys, just like me. And she didn't like the ending, but for whatever reason, she stuck around. Clarabelle painted sunsets like they were alive and said colors were more honest than most people. One time I asked her why she never painted me.
I only paint what stays still long enough to be seen.
Oh, that one stuck. Clarabelle, well, she wasn't just a good looker. She was, still. You know what I mean? In a world full of noise, Clarabelle made silence feel like a warm place to sit.
Now, Skip's first turning point didn't come with a crash. It came with quiet. Someone finally saw through him, Clarabelle, and they didn't flinch. And for a guy like Skip, that kind of truth, it burned, but it also stayed.
Oh, I blew it with Clarabelle, of course. Chose a weekend fishing gig over her art show. She didn't yell, she just packed up her brushes and left a note. And she said,
Skip, you don't know how to be still, so I'll paint you in motion from memory.
And for Skip and Clarabelle, that was that.
Sometimes I think that was the last honest connection I had, and I let it drift out with the tide. That's the thing about turning points. You don't always know you hit one until the rear view is too fogged up to see what you missed.
Skip, you don't own the sea. You just rent it till the tide takes it back.
Oh, well, yeah, she was too good for me. She was too good for me, which I can admit now. Which frankly describes most people I've hung around with. Clarabelle painted this ridiculous sunset for me. It was too bright, too big. It looked like the sky was trying to say something important. And I tell you what, it's still there, catching the light, and I don't dare straighten that thing. Don't want trouble. Well, somewhere near mile marker 59 on the overseas highway heading south through Marathon, I realized one day I've been chasing things my whole life. Storms, stories,
Fast money.
probably had better options than to hang with me. But now, more these days, I could feel it. For me, my game is winding down. My days are a bit slower. And I realize that it might just be time for me to move along again. And believe it or not, I kind of want to go home.
But what is home to a guy who always had one foot in the boat and the other in a mess of some kind? Skip wasn't nostalgic. He was just tired of pretending that it all still mattered.
I pulled off the road near Big Pine Key where the traffic thins and the sky starts getting honest. I knew this place. I drove down a beat-up, rut-filled road, very familiar to me, to the old hidden dock, as I call it. There it was, same rickety planks I built back when Nixon was still sweating on TV. Sat there, sipping cafecito that could melt a spoon. A cafecito? If you never had the pleasure, it's a shot of rocket-fueled Cuban espresso. Sweet enough to raise your eyebrows and twice as strong. It's the kind of drink that wakes you up. It forgives your bad choices and slaps you with a memory, all in one sip. I like it and I kind of need it. I watched the pelicans glide in like they owned the place, and thoughts popped in and out of my head.
So Skip sits there thinking. One of his first thoughts as he sipped his cafecito was on regret.
I used to think regret was for people who wore ties to dinner. Now I know better. Regret's just the late fee on choices you made when you were trying too hard to be interesting. And let me tell you, I was interesting, especially to bartenders, landlords, and one guy from the Coast Guard I still owe a thank you beer.
Skip on getting older.
Well, getting older ain't what they promise in the brochures. Nobody warns you about the 3 a.m. wake-ups just to remember something dumb you said in 1982. Or how your knees start to sound like popcorn. But hey, on the bright side, I no longer worry about my reputation. That particular ship sailed sometime around my third failed seafood stand.
Fresh seafood.
Skip on belonging in the Keys.
Well, I never really fit in anywhere north of Miami. Too rough for the yacht crowd. Didn't own enough polo shirts, I guess. Too smooth for the crab trap guys. Didn't complain enough, or maybe I complained differently. But down here in the lower Keys, nobody asks you who you used to be. They ask what kind of beer you like and how long you plan on sticking around and whether you know how to patch a screen door. You give halfway decent answers, and just like that, you belong.
Skip, on being forgettable.
You know, there's a kind of magic in being forgettable in the right way. Not ignored, no, just left alone long enough to be real. Now, back in the day, I would go down to Key West and walk into Captain Tony's bar, and half of the bar knew I wasn't a local yet, but they didn't care. You help tow a guy's boat during a storm or buy a round when someone's dog dies, and by the end of the week, someone's handed you a rusted out mailbox and saying, "Here, your name goes on this now." Here's how that happened to me. When I think back, big storm rolled through, tore up docks and scattered dinghies and knocked the power out at Sandy's Bait and Liquor for 3 days. And somehow I ended up helping old Billy Ron tow his boat. I didn't know Billy Ron at the time. His engine had doffed its last rites as the squall had kicked in. That man still swears I saved his life. I swore I just didn't want to watch him drown, holding onto that case of Bud Light.
Hey Skip, you really pulled my no-good behind out of that one. I was due for some kind of dramatic exit, I thought.
Trust me, I thought about it, but you were clutching that 12-pack like it was your firstborn. Felt wrong to let it go to waste.
Oh, yeah.
You got a sixth sense of mercy, Skip. Just about that time, in comes Loretta. She was around 60, tough as barnacles, that lady, and chain-smoking constantly. And she comes walking over to me, holding a rusted mailbox in her hands.
You live down by Sugarloaf, right?
Technically, I exist there. Living's a stretch.
Good. Then you'll need this. Here, take this. Slap your name on it. You're not just a bar stool now. You're someone's bar stool.
When you're in the Keys, I guess that's a promotion.
Oh, a mailbox? Is this a Keys thing, or are you all just aggressively generous? Same thing. Thanks, my friend.
Hey, Skip.
Same thing.
Well, if you're gonna stay here, you deserve this.
I guess I do. Thank you, you guys. You're tremendous.
Oh, it ain't nothing, you saved my life. I should be thanking you.
Welcome.
My cigarette.
Skip finishes that memory.
Now, I gotta tell you about that mailbox back then. It was ugly, dented, and rusted shut. Kinda like me. Well, come to think of it, but for some reason that busted old mailbox felt like a welcome mat. Like the island finally shrugged and said, "Alright, you're weird enough. You're in." I did not know it then, but that was the first time I felt rooted. You know, no ceremony, no speech, just a mailbox, and people who didn't ask where you came from. Just as long as you knew how to tie a bottle line and didn't take yourself too seriously.
Now, Skip poured more cafecito as we talked online, and the wind seemed to be nudging his memory loose more and more.
I didn't mean to stay in the Keys forever, but every time I thought about leaving, something would pull me back in. A sunrise I hadn't seen yet. A story that wasn't finished. A friend that I probably shouldn't be hanging around with, but we were having fun. And maybe, that's all any of us need. One reason to stay put in a town that just doesn't ask questions. Folks here never ask for resumes if you just stick around long enough to earn yourself a decent nickname and learn the good coffee spot. You have to remember not to feed the iguanas, and you leave a decent tip. You're family around here, and that's what I like about this place. It forgives you before you even ask.
Welcome home, Skip.
You know, as I'm telling you this, I'm trying not to get emotional, but it's not working. Turns out, I miss the quiet. I miss talking to the ghosts that aren't here anymore. Chug, Loretta, Billy Ron, Clarabelle. My life, for me, I guess I'm just better off alone, by myself. Oh, hey, mostly because no one wants to live with some guy who alphabetizes his regrets. And besides, this doc, my doc here, never judged me. So today's the day. So I'm glad I'm talking to you here today. Here's what just happened. I'm selling the cottage today. 37 years I kept that mailbox. Didn't get much mail. Some fishing magazines I never subscribed to. A few court summons that weren't mine, but I kept it. Nobody needs mail out here. But that box, it says you stayed long enough to matter.
But time changes things, and for an aging Skip, it was time to move along. At that time, up the beach, walked a man, late 20s, sunburned, sweating heavily. He was hauling a beat-up duffel bag onto Skip's porch. He clearly was moving in.
Whoa, man, you weren't kidding. This roof leaks like a jealous ex. Sideways, backwards, emotionally.
Well, only when it rains, or when it's humid, or when you sigh too loud.
So, always? It's like this?
Bingo. Here, I got something for you. This is my old mailbox. The flag's missing on it. Sorry about that. But you're gonna want this.
I don't even get mail. I don't want to get mail.
It doesn't matter. This ain't for mail. It's proof that you stayed long enough to get handed something that doesn't make any sense to anyone but people like us.
Now Skip took the mailbox and he placed it up on the porch rail, kind of like on display. And for a moment they both looked at it.
A gal, long gone now, named Loretta, gave me this mailbox back in 1981. After a storm and a beer and a near-death boat tow. If I recall, she said,
Then you'll need this. Here, take this. Slap your name on it. You're not just a barstool now. You're someone's barstool.
So, I figure it's your turn.
Are you always this poetic, or is it just the humidity?
No. I'm sentimental once a decade. This is it. Don't make me regret it.
They both laughed. Thank you, my friend. And turned toward the water.
Look at that sky.
Right.
It's so quiet. It's nice.
I loved living here. You're gonna love it too. You know, I never gave that kid advice because he didn't need it. This place teaches you plenty. How to live slower, lose louder, and maybe stay put when the breeze is good. That mailbox, it's not much. Because here in the Keys, mailbox doesn't mean you're waiting on something. It means you showed up and you stayed. A minute later, I gave my cottage keys to that kid with the sunburned shoulders and big dreams. Looked just like me many years ago. If I had ever had a budget and sunscreen. I left Clarabelle's painting where she'd want it. Slightly crooked, defiant, honest. Didn't leave a note. Who writes notes anymore? I just sat on the porch for one final time and let the sunset hit my shins. And I breathed in that salt-heavy air. like it might give me back a few years.
So it might seem like Skip was taking off. He was going to go somewhere. He was going to leave somehow. But he did not ride off into the sunset. Of course, he probably would have drowned if he had. He stayed. He let the tide go out without chasing it. And he let the island hold on to what there was left of him.
I didn't need a highway. Didn't need a map. I had the keys. And the sky. And the ocean. And a stretch of dock that was just wide enough for my goodbye.
Ernest Skip Wilson didn't leave a legacy. He left stories. Half of them were true, and all of them were salty. And every one of them worth hearing. But where did he really go? Well, according to Skip, he went to a simple old Winnebago parked behind some mangroves near mile marker 21. Well, the generator's moody, according to Skip, and the view's a knockout. But there's no address, no expectations, not even a mailbox this time. Just Skip and the breeze. So what did we learn today on this episode? Or what did Skip learn? Or what did I learn? Well, I can tell you this, after talking to Skip, it was nice to talk to him again. Sometimes the best way to say goodbye is just to stay put. Retell a story or two to some old friends and watch the sun do its thing. Simple enough. For Life's Learning Curve, I'm Paul Hart. Subscribe to Life's Learning Curve at lifeslearningcurve.org and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or Podchaser.
This Season 7 episode of Life's Learning Curve was produced by Sebastian T., Dog, and Paul Hart. Find us just about everywhere podcasts are heard. Visit our website, lifeslearningcurve.org. While you're there, subscribe. We'd love to have you aboard. This episode has imaginative voice creations to protect the privacy of others. Some names have been changed and characters conflated. Episode 94. You're somebody's barstool now. For more true stories from our life's archives, you'll find us again right here on Life's Learning Curve.